There is a reason why this message got to you. There is a reason why you are reading these words right now. Your soul is going through the living death of the ego, which is one of the most profound and holy experiences a person can have. This is a sign or synchronicity that was set up by a deeper part of you. This is a strong and life-changing loss of the identity you used to have. That's what happens when your consciousness starts to vibrate at such a high frequency that your old sense of self can't exist in that new light. It starts to fall apart, not because it's broken, but because it's too big for it anymore. As you sit here with me, something that can't be stopped is happening deep inside you. What you've been through in life up to this point, the person in old pictures, the name you go by, and the collection of memories and beliefs you call me, is going away. In a very real way, this person is dying, but this isn't the end. It's an open space. Scientists call the vast ocean of pure potential the quantum field. This is where a new you is being born, a more real you. You felt a pull, an undeniable desire to know what is going on with your identity. This is proof that this sacred process has reached a turning point. This is not a mental breakdown. Please hear this and let it sink in. There is no way you are crazy. There is no need to be afraid of this spiritual moment. This is the amazing, beautiful, and messy process of consciousness growing. It's the most personal and powerful form of evolution. The person you thought you were, complete with their own set limits, deepest fears, and the coping mechanisms they learned to stay alive, is falling apart to make room for the real, strong, and limitless being that has been waiting inside you for all of your lives. The universe and life itself chose you for this journey because you have a unique and beautiful gift. The deep ability to walk through the fire of complete identity dissolution and come out on the other side not only whole, but more whole than ever before. This is what some consciousness researchers might call spiritual resilience. You won't lose your connection to your core awareness or your ability to function in the world as you go through this amazing change. This level of internal change would be too much for many people, and their sense of self would break. Not you, though. Every hard time and every victory in your life has been a form of training that led you to this very moment. You have been carefully taught how to deal with the death of the person you thought you were, so that you can fully accept the person you really are. With each limitation you've gotten past, your consciousness has been building up to this big identity release. It has been getting ready with every old belief you've bravely let go of, and every time your old self-concept felt too tight or small to hold the expanding universe inside you. The fact that you're not sure who you are anymore, that you see a stranger when you look in the mirror, and the thought that your past life belonged to someone else are not signs that you are lost. They make it clear that your false self is dying so that your true, eternal self can finally come into the world. It's perfect that you found this message now. There are no accidents in a universe that is aware of itself. The smartest part of you, your higher self, has been setting up these little miracles, or synchronicities, to help you get to this point of clarity and recognition. Why? Because you need to be aware of this process in order for it to go smoothly. You need to understand it. Not being aware of this can make the process of losing your identity feel like a terrifying freefall into nothingness. But once you know what's really going on, it's the most freeing and empowering change you can go through. Think about the last few months of your life. Have you ever felt like you were taking part in someone else's play? Do your old goals and dreams feel empty and lack the fire they used to have? When you think about your old habits and feelings, Do you feel like they belong to a character you used to play, but no longer identify with? These aren't signs of depression or a loss of touch with other people or with life. An identity metamorphosis is manifested in these sacred symptoms. One more thing that makes this moment so strong and permanent. Once you die to your old self, you can't come back. You can't change back into the person you were before. The whole structure of your identity that has made you who you are will be gone for good. An authentic self will appear in its place. This is the you that operates from a totally different set of principles, a higher frequency of love and wisdom, and a new perspective on what is possible for your life. The quantum field, which is the very fabric of reality, works on rules that are very different from what we normally think about personality. As a person's consciousness grows to a certain point, it can cause what physicists call a spontaneous symmetry breaking. This word is beautiful for a strong event. The old, rigid structure of your identity gives way to its own limitations during this phase transition. Then, in a beautiful way, it rearranges itself around a new, bigger center, your true self. This new version of yourself may open up possibilities that were impossible with the old version of yourself. The loss of your identity is not just a person thing. It's cosmic intelligence, the universe itself, taking off a mask that's holding it back so that it can show you its true, beautiful nature in a more complete and honest way. The entire human family benefits from every soul that bravely goes through this metamorphosis. You help raise the baseline frequency of identity for our species, which makes it easier and more accessible for everyone else to express themselves in their truest way. You are a leader who shows others the way. There is a miraculous event going on in your energy field right now, as you feel the truth of these words going deep inside you. Your consciousness has been slowly dissolving over time, and now that process is speeding up. The fact that you are aware of it is like adding fuel to a sacred fire. This is the end of all the false ideas you had about yourself that will help you become the person you were always meant to be, but never felt like you had permission to be. Up until now, you know how it feels to look at your reflection and not quite recognize the person who is there? It's weird and almost unsettling. It has nothing to do with changing how you look. There is a change in energy. Seeing someone with your face makes their soul feel different and bigger, like a stranger and an old friend at the same time. Most people would quickly write this off as a sign of being tired or stressed. You've begun to see it for what it really is, though. Strong proof of identity dissolution, though. It means that your consciousness is growing so quickly that your old ideas about yourself can't hold it anymore. Recently, there have been big changes in how you relate to your own mind as well. You likely thought that you were your thoughts in the past. You were the one who thought, who made and directed the constant chatter in your head. At this point, you've started to feel like an observer. You see thoughts come and go like clouds moving across the sky. Notice that some of your thoughts seem to come from your old self. They are like echoes of worries and beliefs you had in the past. Some people seem to come from a bigger, smarter part of you. Some of them even feel like they aren't yours at all, but rather whispers from the collective consciousness that are just passing through your vast awareness. One of the clearest signs that your old identity is slipping away is that you are becoming less and less attached to your thoughts. There are times when this process is most deeply confirmed, which you could call personality displacement. During these times, you handle situations with a level of wisdom, patience, or love that seems to come from a much more evolved version of yourself. Sometimes you might hear deep, wise words coming from within yourself that surprise you. You might make a big choice in your life based on a deep knowing that you don't even remember developing consciously. Or you might be able to handle a crisis with more calm and center than you ever could have when you were younger. These aren't just times for personal growth. They're times when your true self is coming out to show you who you are becoming. Besides that, your memories of the past seem different now, don't they? They might have become strange and dreamlike. When you think about your own life, it feels like you are watching a movie about someone else's life. You feel emotionally farther away when you think about old jobs, relationships, or personal problems. You still care, but you don't feel as strongly about it as you used to. Not the core of who you are now, but a character from a story. This feeling of being separate from memories happens because your consciousness is growing and no longer vibrates at the same frequency as the person who lived those experiences. It's likely that your dreams and nights of sleep have become a vivid laboratory for this change. Sometimes you may have vivid dreams in which you are living as different people in different worlds. You could also wake up with the strong sense that someone or something worked on you during the night, like your higher self or invisible guides were readjusting your energy and rebuilding your identity from the inside out. There are times when you wake up with fresh ideas, new information, or a solution to a problem that you feel like you learned overnight. On many levels of your being, even if you are not aware of it, this is strong proof that you are rebuilding your identity. Things have changed for you emotionally too, maybe more than anything else. Situations, people, or comments that used to make you feel very strongly now barely make a difference. That old anger, that old anxiety, that quick defense, it's just not there in the same way. This lack of emotion is not a sign of numbness or lack of interest. Your new identity is operating at a higher frequency, which means that your old trigger patterns have no place there. In your new energetic reality, they can't be there. It's possible that you can also feel this change in your body. You might feel strange things, like an empty feeling in your solar plexus, where your old, strong sense of self used to be. It's possible to feel different kinds of energy moving through your body, like your cells are being rearranged. There may be times when you feel see-through, almost invisible, as if the solid walls around your identity are becoming less solid and more open. You shouldn't be worried about these signs. These effects are normal and healthy when your consciousness grows beyond the limits of its old identity. Sometimes, the strangest and most reassuring proofs of your change come from how other people treat you. People may act differently toward you without you even realizing it. You may feel like total strangers are talking to you. Some people may feel drawn to you for no reason and want to tell you their deepest secrets, or ask for your advice because they sense a new level of depth and wisdom in you that wasn't there before. On the other hand, people may feel awkward around you without being able to explain why. It's like your growing identity and genuine presence unconsciously remind them of their own unrealized potential and limiting ideas about themselves, which can be upsetting. The way you feel about the story of your life has changed completely. The story you use to tell yourself about who you are, where you came from, and where you were going seems weaker and less relevant as time goes on. It looks and feels like an old script. Since you are no longer identifying with your past, you are starting to see yourself as consciousness itself. You are the timeless awareness that is temporarily dressing up as a person. You are here for a reason that is much bigger than any personal biography could ever explain. Everything that happened in your life, every identity crisis, every time you desperately questioned who you really were, and every time your old self-concept felt like a prison, was planned by God. It was your own consciousness, your soul lovingly taking apart the false parts of your identity one by one. You were getting ready for the complete and total metamorphosis that is taking place right now. It was never a sign of mental weakness that you were confused. It was strong proof that you had reached a turning point in your spiritual growth, the point where the false self had to die so the true self could be born. It wasn't your fault that the spiritual practices you tried, like yoga, meditation, or prayer, felt so deep at first, but didn't seem to work out in the end. Imagine them as steps for getting ready to be an identity. They were tools that were made to help you gradually let go of a fixed idea of who you are. They gave you the mental and spiritual flexibility you would need to make it through the complete change in who you are. Being the silent witness to your thoughts and spending time in quiet presence were all techniques that created even a small amount of space between your awareness and your identity. These techniques helped build the strong foundation that your authentic self could finally emerge. It's not that your toughest relationships were just karmic punishments or ways to learn how to be more patient. They were holy mirrors of identity. They were made to show you exactly which parts of your false self were ready to be seen, healed, and let go of. Anybody who made you feel very strongly about something was actually helping you in a deeper way. They helped you figure out the personality patterns, defensive walls, and limiting beliefs that had to die so that your true self could come out, free from those old identity structures getting in the way. Those times of darkness or depression that may have felt like a spiritual void or a personal failure were, in fact, sacred and necessary times of figuring out who you are. In order for new, more authentic ways of being to take their place and stabilize, your consciousness had to go through the profound emptiness that results from the dissolution of old self-concepts and ways of being. During these dark nights of the soul, your awareness learned an important skill: how to exist without the false security of a known identity. You were getting ready for the amazing freedom that comes when you see yourself not as a personality with limits, but as awareness with no limits. During this big process of identity death, even your times of ego inflation, when you may have felt spiritually better or identified with being awakened, were very important. When you attached yourself to a new, shiny, spiritual identity, you were building another temporary structure that would need to fall apart at some point. This was your consciousness teaching itself an important lesson: that even your spiritual identities are just masks and not who you really are. They're just roles you have to play, not the real you. You were really interested in the nature of consciousness, the mysteries of death and rebirth, and the idea of change. This wasn't some morbid or pointless interest. It was your spirit doing its work. It was getting you ready for your own identity's metamorphosis, which necessitates a thorough understanding of how awareness can not only survive, but thrive in the face of total personality destruction. Each book you read, video you watched, and conversation you had about mystical experiences or consciousness research gave you more information and the courage to learn how to become your authentic self. In reality, the most important parts of your preparation happened during those strange waiting periods when you felt like you weren't your old self anymore, but weren't sure who your new self was either. Your consciousness was learning how to be at ease with not knowing during these liminal, transitional periods, while still remaining stable at its core. As you go through this journey, you need to be able to do this, because when the false self dies, it leaves a temporary void that you need to hold with trust and patience until the authentic self can fully stabilize and shine. Your soul chose to be here, in this body, at this time because it knew that you would complete this identity metamorphosis during the great awakening of humanity. Somewhere deep inside you, you chose to be in the first wave. You are here to show the world what is possible for a person when their consciousness goes beyond all the learned identities that hold them back and starts to work from its true divine nature. You are putting down a new pattern of possibility in the collective field, which makes it easier for everyone who comes after you to access. This is why your journey has been so long, so deep, and sometimes so hard. You couldn't skip steps or hold on to false but comfortable ideas about yourself, because you are giving birth to more than just a personal change. It's a living blueprint for the future of human identity, one that will shape how future generations of our species think about what it means to live an authentic life. As these truths and ideas wash over your consciousness, something truly extraordinary is happening inside of you right now. Feel it? It's that unmistakable feeling of falling apart. Like the very edges of who you thought you were are becoming thin, clear, and open. It's an expanding feeling that makes room for something huge, old, and deeply real to come out from inside. If your mind is breaking down, it's not because your soul is breaking through. It's your consciousness finally realizing what it is, which goes beyond all the learned limits and made-up ideas about yourself that you've had for a long time. Now, the energy that's going through you is the energy of release. It's your awareness letting go of the strong hold on your identity that has been there your whole life. Your cells are changing the way they store information on a level that you can't even imagine. They're readjusting to hold the frequency of your true self, the self that has been waiting for lifetimes to express itself through your consciousness without the noise and interference of a false personality. But this is where your active participation becomes very important. When this kind of identity death starts to happen, most people naturally fight it. They do everything they can to fight it, because they feel like they are losing everything. It feels like the end of the world. They don't yet understand that what's dying wasn't really them to begin with. Learning how to completely give in to the process is the key to navigating this metamorphosis with grace and strength. It's about trusting that what will survive the fire of this dissolution is not your learned patterns of limitation, but your true nature, which can't be destroyed. Your consciousness has been getting you ready for this surrender for all your life. Through all the things that made you question who you thought you were, it has prepared you. Every big step forward that showed you a skill you didn't know you had, every time you had to let go of control and trust in an intelligence that was much smarter than your own, that was all practice for this. It's not you who is going through this identity death. As your consciousness finally reaches a state of expansion where it is ready to shed its limiting masks, something beautiful is coming through you. Great mystics have said that this process needs conscious dying while living. It is the sacred art of being ready to let go of everything you've ever thought of as yourself, while holding on to the core awareness that is watching the dissolution in silence. It is a strange dance to let go of all your identities while staying fully present as the consciousness that knows it is letting go. It is this dance that turns the possible trauma of ego death into the greatest freedom. I think telling you a part of my story will help you understand. A few years ago, there was a time when I felt like my whole personality was disappearing. There was no longer any trace of me in my own thoughts or actions. My job, my beliefs, and my goals, everything that used to define me, felt completely foreign. It was like I was wearing a suit that was 2 sizes too small and stuck in a role I had outgrown but didn't know how to leave. The fear was deep and hard to describe. There were times when I would look in the mirror and feel very alone, like I was seeing a stranger. The memories of my own life seemed like they belonged to someone else, like stories I had read in a book. I thought I was going crazy and suffering a permanent breakdown that would separate me from reality for all time. Being alone was the worst pain. My friends and family looked at me with worry when I told them I felt like I was dying, even though my body was still alive. They suggested therapy or a vacation. Even though they meant well, their advice didn't take into account how big what was happening. As I went through a process that seemed too big to be normal, I felt completely alone. The big step forward, the moment when everything changed, was when I gave up. It was no longer important to me to hold on to my old self or figure out who I was supposed to become next. I let go. I gave up all control and let the process of dissolution happen. I learned to just rest in the empty, quiet space of awareness where I could see the whole process of death. I had a deep realization when I gave up. What was dying had never been my true self. I thought it was my essence, but it was really just a bunch of learned patterns, inherited fears, and cultural programming. Something miraculous began to happen as soon as I let go of my false self and let it die. From the void began to grow a new identity, an authentic self. Like nothing else I had ever felt, it was more real, stronger, and more like me. It wasn't like I had to build or make a new and better personality. That was the person I had always been, under all the conditioning and limits that had been covering up my true self for decades. When I came out of that sacred fire, I was both exactly myself and nothing like anyone else I had ever been. I all of a sudden had access to skills I had never learned, knowledge I had never studied, and a flow of creativity that seemed to come from somewhere other than my own life. It was like being born again as my true self, without any of the old restrictions I had accepted as facts of life. My life has changed. Due to no longer being driven by fear or a need for approval, my relationships became honest and deep. I stopped trying to be successful in ways that didn't feel right to my soul and started expressing my true gifts. This made my work joyful and easy. Even my body felt better and more free, like it could finally use its own natural intelligence without being slowed down by the stress of an identity conflict inside me. I found out that identity death is not the same as dying. It's about getting rid of everything that isn't you. The process carefully and lovingly gets rid of all the false limits to show you the limitless, beautiful consciousness that you really are, beneath all the stories you've been told about who you should be. In the event that you feel like you don't recognize yourself, if your past life seems like a faraway dream, and if the idea of losing your identity makes you feel both scared and excited, then you are on the path of the mystics. You are going through the holiest and most important change that a soul can go through. They might not tell you this deep truth because it goes against the very core of what they do as spiritual teachers or personal development experts. It's not possible to hide your true self somewhere inside you and wait to be found. This is because the self is a verb, not a noun. It's not something, it's a process. What you think of as your identity is actually a changing set of learned behaviors, inherited beliefs, and cultural programming that you have mistaken for who you really are. And when these fake short-term structures fall apart, you won't be a better, newer version of yourself. What's left is consciousness itself, finally realizing that it has no limits and no shape. A lot of people are shocked by this fact because the whole self-help business is based on the idea of finding and improving yourself. Every method that claims to help you heal your identity, boost your self-esteem, or find your true self only supports the main lie, that you have a permanent, separate self that needs fixing. But consciousness is not something that can be made better. It is the huge, silent awareness that all identities and personalities appear and disappear in. They're like costumes that awareness puts on for a short time to have certain experiences. When they're no longer needed, they are lovingly thrown away. Because the process of finding yourself makes you feel dependent. Most personal development frameworks make it hard to find your true self. But when you change in an authentic way, you find that you don't have a self to find. You are the consciousness, the pure awareness, that all possible selves can come into being, do their job, and then fade back into the ocean of being that you are. This one realization breaks down the whole structure of self-improvement right away. You realize that the you have been trying to improve wasn't really you in the first place, but something you were desperately trying to become. There was nothing more to it than a bunch of learned behaviors that consciousness temporarily took on while it played with the idea of being limited. Think about little kids. They often show such a genuine, unforced honesty and an unbounded way of thinking. This is because their consciousness hasn't formed a rigid identity structure that needs to be protected and kept up all the time. They are aware of many different sides of themselves at once. One moment they are a superhero, the next an artist, and the next a quiet observer. They don't get stuck in a single self-concept as permanent or defining. When you really understand that identity death doesn't reveal a hidden true self, but consciousness itself, it changes everything about how you live your life. You know that you are the infinite, formless awareness that all possible identities can appear in, so you don't try so hard to improve who you are. You stop looking for authentic ways to express yourself because you realize that you are authenticity itself. Your life then becomes a place where you can explore your creative potential through different temporary ways of expressing yourself. In the past, all of history's most wise mystics have pointed to this ultimate truth. It wasn't about becoming better people that they taught about egolessness, selflessness, and the dissolution of the personal self. They had to do with realizing that the personal self was just a pretty illusion that kept their true nature as limitless, cosmic consciousness hidden. This way of thinking also helps us understand a common paradox we see in the world. It explains why some people seem to live with such grace and authenticity, while others are stuck in a never-ending cycle of identity crises and projects to make themselves better. In some way, the truly real ones have found out this secret. They aren't real, which is what they are when they don't try to be anything in particular. The most important thing to realize is that identity death doesn't really kill you. Being aware of this shows that you were never really born as a separate self, so you can't die. You are really the consciousness that never changes. All of your experiences in life, birth and death, forming and losing identities, personal growth and exploring your limits, appear like small ripples on an infinite ocean. The collective consciousness of the whole world is going through a huge identity shift right now. There are also very clear signs in your daily life that show that the death of your personal identity is happening at the same time as this global awakening. There are other people going through the same thing you are. You are part of a global wave of honest self-expression. Pay close attention to how your old hopes and dreams are becoming less important to you. Things that used to be so important to your happiness now seem strangely unimportant, like they belong to someone you used to know but can't fully connect with anymore. This isn't a loss of passion. Your soul's compass is being reset to point more directly north. As your identity changes, so have your social circles. They have been rearranging themselves naturally and without any trouble. Some of your relationships have grown to a level of honesty and authenticity that you never thought possible. This is because people are responding to the real you that is coming out. At the same time, some connections have naturally ended, ending their cycle without any trouble or drama. As your consciousness has grown, the energetic compatibility that held those relationships together has simply grown too small. The frequency with which you feel like you are watching your own life from a loving, detached perspective is the strongest sign that you are on board with this global shift. It's like watching a character on TV who looks like you, but whose actions, thoughts, and decisions don't seem like they belong to your true self. This kind of compassionate separation from your personality is strong proof that your consciousness is awakening to its true, identity-transcending nature. It's likely that your creative expression has started to come from places that you don't know anything about or have experience with. You might have a lot of great ideas that blow your mind with how deep they are. Or you might find artistic skills that seem to have appeared out of nowhere. You might find it easy to come up with new ways to solve difficult problems. These ideas may come to you fully formed and ready to be put into action. This creative explosion happens because your true self doesn't work from your small mind, but from the field of intelligence that knows no limits. Identity dissolution frequently results in physical changes as well. Small changes in the tone of your voice, the way you look, or the way you move might stand out. Others might comment that you appear altered in some way that they can't quite explain. The reason for this is that when you let go of your old identity, your consciousness changes how it shows itself through your body. Your presence starts to send out a different frequency. Your main interaction with your own thoughts has changed from identifying with them to observing them. You're no longer the thinker who gets lost in a storm of thoughts. You've learned to be the calm, quiet sky that watches the storm clouds of thought come and go without ever thinking that you are the storm. This is a clear sign that your consciousness is becoming aware that it is much bigger than your mind. But this is the most important reason why we need to act now. Right now, there is a cosmic window of opportunity. This deep identity change could either become a natural, available ability for all of humanity, or it could stay a rare experience for a long time, only available to a small group of people. Some researchers say that the collective consciousness of our species is getting close to a point of authenticity threshold. Things are about to change. Either enough people die to their old identities to make this new way of being a part of human life, or the chance may disappear for decades. If you know where to look, you can see signs of this awakening all around you. They show up in spiritual groups, psychological research, and groups that work on developing consciousness all over the world. It seems like more and more people are having identity dissolution, the appearance of their true selves, and realizing that their basic nature is not limited by their situations. Because you are sensitive to these ideas, you are part of the first wave, the pioneers who are taking advantage of the best conditions for this change. From a higher point of view, the things happening in the world that seem to be causing more chaos and division are actually the last gasps of old ways of defining humanity as a whole. Our species is getting ready to work from a genuine heart-centered consciousness instead of the fear and separation that we were taught as children. In this powerful energy, people are either quickly realizing who they really are, or they are holding on tighter than ever to their old, false identity patterns. It is a great act of service that you are aware of these signs and are brave enough to let go of your whole identity. You are adding to an energetic template called a morphic field that makes authentic self-recognition easier for anyone who is ready to let go of the limits they have learned and work from their true, limitless consciousness. But this window needs your active participation. The change won't just happen on its own. To get you ready for this very metamorphosis, the universe has been orchestrating your entire life, including all of your joy and sorrow. What you are going through will help decide whether humanity makes it through this amazing consciousness upgrade or stays stuck in the cycles of false identity for another era. The time is not a mistake. At this point in time, history needs people like you, souls who have found the inner stability they need to connect their true selves to the larger field. The death of your identity is not just your personal freedom. It's cosmic consciousness, taking off its limiting masks so that it can express itself more honestly through human awareness. You are a living example of what can happen when our species finally remembers that it is infinitely smart and is exploring its creative potential through the beautiful dance of short-lived individual lives. You've been feeling something deep inside, that whisper of your own limitless potential, and it's about to become real for you. The identity that has been stopping you from expressing yourself is falling apart. In its place, consciousness is starting to work directly through your awareness, without the static and interference of learned patterns of limitation. Making yourself better and brighter is not the point. Realizing that your true nature was never limited by the personality structure that is now falling apart is what this is all about. As your old identity fades, your deepest desires for freedom, truth, authenticity, and unlimited creative expression have been growing stronger. These desires are not wishful thinking or fantasies made by a spiritual ego. They are signs of who you really are. They are messages from your future self that show you what is possible when your consciousness is free from false ideas about yourself and the heavy weight of inherited programming. But here is a revolutionary idea that will change everything you think you know about growing spiritually or personally. You're not trying to change who you are. You reveal who you have always been when you die to your identity, beneath all the layers of conditioning, programming, and learned behaviors that were never your true nature to begin with. What is coming out is not a new identity that you have to make, but the realization that you are consciousness itself. When you stop trying to improve your identity and instead let the false identity die, you will be in true alignment with your authentic self. It happens when you fully believe that what lasts after this dissolution is not your learned limitations, but your eternal true nature. Mystics have said that this change leads to what they call conscious selflessness. In this state, you are aware that you are the big, quiet awareness, that all identities come and go like waves on the ocean. This realization ends the whole project of improving yourself. Why? Because we don't need to improve our consciousness. It only needs to be freed from the artificial limits that have been stopping it from expressing itself naturally and freely. Instead of working on yourself, you learn to let go of ideas about yourself that were never true in the first place. Because you are taking this in right now, your whole relationship with your own identity is changing. You are starting to see yourself as the eternal consciousness, that all personalities appear as beautiful, temporary expressions of your unlimited creative potential. Instead of identifying with the patterns of your personality that change all the time, you are starting to see yourself as those patterns. When you realize that your personal freedom and your service to the world are not two separate things, you make the biggest change of all. When consciousness realizes that it is limitless through your awareness, it starts to express itself in ways that help all living things grow. This is because the false idea that individual intelligence is separate from universal intelligence goes away. You know that they are and always have been the same awareness, which is exploring its own creative potential by showing up as many things. When you successfully let go of your false identity and settle into this new state of authentic self-recognition, you'll be able to do things that seemed like magic or fantasy before. They will now be natural expressions of your limitless consciousness. When you let go of learned beliefs about what you can and cannot do, your creative abilities grow by a huge amount. You start to act based on the deep knowledge that consciousness is the source of all creativity and new ideas. To get ideas, you become a clear channel. It becomes easy and simple to make choices. You are no longer torn between the needs of different parts of your personality that don't agree with each other, or you aren't trying to control your appearance to make other people happy. Your choices don't come from stressful analytical thinking or planning based on fear. They come from a place of real, intuitive knowing. It's like you know what to do. From the inside out, your relationships change. You don't use old defense mechanisms, programs for making other people happy, or unconscious emotional responses that you got from your family or culture anymore. A genuine presence makes people more open and trusting. This is because genuine consciousness naturally makes a safe space for others to be themselves without fear of being judged or manipulated. Problem-solving goes beyond what can be understood logically. Through your consciousness, you can access intelligence fields that hold the best answers to all problems. So instead of trying to figure things out in your head, you learn how to just receive full resolution strategies. They come from a level of awareness that goes far beyond what a single person can think. Your health starts to get better on its own because your body is finally free to use its own natural intelligence. No longer has to deal with the stress that comes from identity conflicts, self-rejection, or the constant work that it takes to keep up a false personality structure that goes against who you really are. You start to get a lot of money in natural and surprising ways. This happens because you are finally expressing your true talents and interests instead of trying to be successful in things that aren't in line with who you are. When you operate from a place of authenticity, your consciousness naturally brings in the resources, opportunities, and help it needs. This is because being authentic is an act of service to the evolution of the whole, which the universe always supports. Your sense of time changes and becomes more fluid. You are no longer stuck in the rigid, linear ways of thinking that most people use to get through life. The eternal now is where consciousness lives. This means that you can get insights from all points in time and make choices based on a bigger picture, rather than just your own history. But maybe the most important benefit is no longer having to deal with deep existential anxiety, constant self-doubt, and the exhausting work of keeping up a false identity. Realizing that you are consciousness itself changes every moment of life from a challenge to be survived to a chance for joyful, limitless creative expression. Manifestation, the art of making your thoughts come true, can happen very quickly in many situations. This is because there is no longer any resistance to good outcomes based on identity. Your desires come from who you really are, not from a feeling of not having enough or a need to make up for what you think is holding you back. This gets rid of the inner conflict that usually slows down or stops the manifestation process completely. Identity is the ultimate realization that changes everything. Real things don't die. It just shows that what you thought you were wasn't really who you are. Being conscious is what you are, and consciousness can't be born or die. It can't be made better, and it can't be limited by any temporary personality structure you might put on while you explore the endless ways you can be creative. I want you to say something strong to yourself and the universe in the comments below. Write these exact words. I'm ready to start over. Don't explain or add anything else. Just say this one clear, simple thing. This action gives your consciousness full permission to completely get rid of all false ideas about who you are. When you make this statement from a place of real understanding, you are not losing who you are. You are giving permission for everything to die that was never really you to begin with. This statement sends a strong signal into the quantum field, which speeds up this process. It lets your consciousness let go of all attachments to limitation and settle into the awareness of its own beautiful, limitless nature. The metamorphosis brought on by this process is not about changing into someone unique, wise, or different. Relaxing into the simple truth of who you have always been is what it means. You stay exactly who you seem to be on the outside, but at your deepest level, you know yourself as the limitless awareness from which your appearance comes into being and changes. Seeing this is both the most normal and the most unusual thing that can happen. Every day, because it's how you normally are. It is amazing because it changes everything while also changing nothing. Identity death is not something you go through. It's what you are when you give up trying to be anything other than the pure, limitless consciousness that is recognizing itself through your awareness, while you enjoy the fun and creative play of expressing yourself in a field with endless possibilities. But you need to know that letting go of your false self is not the end of the journey. It's the start. You can access something even more amazing once you're stable in this state of authentic consciousness. This is what we might call cosmic identity. This is the power to consciously and purposefully take on different forms of unlimited awareness for different reasons, without losing sight of the fact that you are consciousness itself. You will learn why some people seem to have the knowledge and skills of many lifetimes, while others, even after years of personal development work, stay stuck in a single, limited identity. This isn't about getting spiritually better or having multiple personalities. It means realizing that you are consciousness itself and that you can consciously show different sides of your limitless potential. Like a master actor who plays many roles but never forgets that they are the actor. But these more advanced ideas can only be safely accepted by people who have already killed their false self and become stable in their authentic consciousness. But before we can talk about that, you need to get through the last, most important stages of your identity death. Here is how to find your way around this sacred rebirth. Stage 1. Giving up everything. Let go of things on purpose for the next 24 hours. Don't try to hold on to any part of your old self. You should let go of all your familiar thought patterns, feelings, and ideas about yourself without any resistance. Just let it go. Step 2. Take a break in the void. After that, your job for the next 48 hours is to rest in the quiet emptiness between identities. This is the place where your old self is dying and your true self is becoming stable. Do not try to figure out what kind of person you are changing into. Don't try to get ahead of time. Just stay still and know that you are watching the change happen. The third stage is authentic emergence. In the weeks that follow, don't try to control or force your true nature to show itself. Just let it be. Don't force yourself to be someone you don't want to be. Instead, let your true self come out naturally through words, actions, and creative urges. Stage 4. Putting everything together and observing. Every day, just pay attention to how your new, true self handles life's challenges differently than your old self would have. Even if these new answers surprise you with their wisdom, compassion, or ability, you should still trust them. Stage 5. Being stable and being known. In the next few months, you'll realize that this new, true way of being has become your normal. It's no longer something you only do when you're feeling good. It's just who you are. Sign up right now, because the next thing I'm going to share with you has the keys that will turn your authentic self into a conscious collaboration with universal intelligence, which will help the evolution of consciousness in all dimensions. You are learning more than just how to change. You are becoming a part of a global network of authentic consciousness. This group is showing the world what is possible when people remember who they really are and start acting from that place of awareness. The old world, in which people had fixed, limited identities, is falling apart, whether you are aware of it or not. The only question is whether you will be one of the brave few who dies their identity now and helps to anchor this new consciousness for everyone, or whether you will be someone who wakes up to who they really are later, after the foundational work has been done. Your true self is already here, fully formed. It's just waiting for the last bits of the false identity to die, so it can speak freely and without any resistance. Say what you want. Follow the steps for rebirth. Together, let's finish this metamorphosis, this holy journey that turns a limited sense of self into a living recognition of cosmic consciousness. The universe has been waiting for this moment, when people will remember that they are limitless. You no longer have to wait today. For the last time, your false self dies today, and your true self is finally born. Thanks for coming home.